and the top 10 talk podcasts.
Yes.
So, shall we start at number 10? It seems like a good place to start.
Number 10 is Fear of a Black Dragon, which, as we know, won an Emmy in 2018 for Best Podcast.
Okay, number 9.
Number 9. Again, this is actually one I've also listened to, System Mastery.
So let's move on to number 8.
Oh, yes. Tell us about that one.
This one is Gaming and BS.
Nice. BS might stand for
Ball show? No. Boat sinking. Boat sinking? No.
Bovine spongiform encephalitis. No.
Yeah, that must be it. Yeah.
It's BSE. Goodness.
BSE.
Yeah. Obviously without the brain expanding, so it's just like cows with spongy brains.
So I think our listeners do know what BS stands for.
Well, if you don't, it's not our place to tell you.
So this is a couple of guys in Wisconsin in the USA.
Yeah. I think they share a workplace or something, and they talk about D&D.
I don't know if they share a workplace or not, do they?
I got the impression they did. I could be very wrong.
You're just making stuff up again.
Making stuff up that I read off the website this morning, yes.
So their main topics include things like getting info from players, seafaring adventures, the OSR, gaming with kids, playing online, cursed items and stuff like that. So they have a main topic each week, which is role-player game related, and they delve into. Then they've got a few other sort of segments that they touch on. So they've got their random encounter segment, which is letters and comments from listeners. They've got their die roll segment, which they call 2d4 points of miscellaneous geekery.
Yes. Good old caltrops. Anyway.
So, number 7.
Yes. Which I believe, and this is the point where you call me an idiot and tell Daryl to edit out everything I'm saying. I think that's the official Wizards of the Coast podcast.
That is the official D&D podcast of Wizards of the Coast.
Oh, is that right?
Welcome to Gaming and BS, a tabletop RPG podcast recorded Sunday, January 27th, 2019. I am Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome backs. Back, singular. Glad to have you on board. Unless there's more of you, backs. I don't know, whatever. You're here, we're here. How the hell are you, Sean?
I'm Peachy Keen, Brett.
That's a nice little intro you did there. I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, we got to thank Morris out there from EN World for doing the podcast survey where we came in number 8 out of, I don't know how many that were listed.
Well, that's pretty cool.
So thanks for whoever nominated us, and thanks to everybody who voted for us. We came in right before the official D&D podcast, exactly. and right after Tales of a Green Dragon.
Black Dragon.
I say green because his emblem's green.
Oh, yeah, but it's black. It's Black Dragon.
But it's Black Dragon. That's any winning award podcast.
I know.
There.
I can't believe we are actually in illustrious company. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to that, I'll put a link in the show notes somewhere so you can check out some of those. They divided the podcast from actual play to more commentary, and we're certainly in great company. Heavyweights like Happy Jacks and Fear the Boot, who have been around for 10, 15 years, and all the rest of the gang that's been in there.
It's cool. It was one of the pieces that Sean and I woke up and see a tweet from Sean and go, holy crap, we got voted into a thing. I didn't know we were included in a thing. So wow, that was pretty neat. That was neither Sean nor I knew that was coming or that we were on a list anywhere to be voted for. So yeah, we didn't even push people over there to vote. They just voted on their own. So that was pretty cool.
Well, we put it out on Twitter and Google Plus, but I mean, still, I wouldn't have expected. So they had 9,000 people that had voted.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Grognard, the Grognard files, I think were number 2.
Pretty cool.
So congratulations to everybody. So again, we mentioned this before. If you want a list of great RPG podcasts, I mean, EN World's got a thread that's just got them all alphabetical, and there's a ton of them.
Yeah, they're all good. They're all good places to go. You will find something you like there. Mm-hmm. So, well, Sean, we're supposed to be freezing to death, I think, tomorrow or tonight.
Yeah.
So if our listeners
We're
don't hear from us after you get this, it means that Sean and I froze to death because it's the snowpocalypse, snowmageddon. The mayor of Madison, Wisconsin says it's going to be the third worst storm since 1990, which is funny because he's a mayor. What the fuck does he know about weather? But anyway.
There has been maps that I have seen that has minus 60. 60, not 16. 67, minus 60 degrees. I think wind chills.
You know what I say to that? Bring it on.
And Alaska's like 20,
Yeah.
30. And they're not even in full daylight yet.
Yeah.
That's crazy bullshit,
Have you
man.
never dealt with
I draw the
You've dealt
I
with
draw
negative
the-
60 before. You have, haven't you?
Probably.
Of course you have.
I'm going to go out there with buckets of water and do that freezing stuff
Last time we
again.
had that shit here, when it got really brutal like that, I had 3 vehicles at the time. None of them would start. Batteries were dying. I had to borrow jump packs from people. I had to go to work. Kids don't have school. My wife is home. The kids are there. And they went outside with the boiling water, threw it in here. It just explodes. Like flash freezing T-shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, bring it on.
Tauntaun.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the Tauntaun to just go right through my parking lot tomorrow afternoon. Doop-de-doo.
Well, that's the nice part about it is the Tauntauns come out this time of year. So
Yes.
if you do drive off the side of the road, you simply knock one down, gut it, and crawl in, and you'll be nice and
That's
warm.
right. Yeah. Beware Wampas.
Oh, yeah, well, Wampas, that's just, standard, yeah.
Yeah. AKA Yeti.
Duh. It's a Wampa, man. You don't live in Wisconsin and not know about the Wampas. That's just what I'm saying. Anyway, so talking about better and cooler gaming stuff, we're still doing the awesome dice thing, man?
Yeah, so we will draw next week on the show who will win the set of dice from awesomedice.com for the month of January. And if you haven't, go over to gamingabs.com, enter your email, and we will randomly draw from our email list to get a set of dice from awesomedice.com. If you head over to awesomedice.com and place an order over $10 and you use the promo code GAMINGBS, just GAMINGBS, then you can save 15% off your order, which will probably cover, I would think, your shipping. So,
Pretty nice.
yeah.
Let's see what else we got going. GaryCon, Sean and I will be there. I think I've secured a domicile for you to crash in with me, Sean, so we should be okay.
Yeah. Can't wait. Every new convention that I stay with somebody different, it's a new spooning experience.
Well, it is going to be Wisconsin in March, so it'll be cold. So we'll have to cuddle. That's just how that works because it's going to be cold.
Yep.
That's how you.
Right.
That's how you stay warm and stay alive.
Yep. Because if you can't come across the Tauntaun,
Yeah, you got to buddy up, man. That's how this goes.
that's right.
So, a little quick bit on the Avalon Kickstarter. As I've said before on the show, it's successful, and from a funding perspective, it is not successful yet until the goods are out the door. So, Christine, Zach, Phil Vecchian, and I met this last Monday, went through the plan, the schedule for how we're going to deliver all the extra stuff that's out there. If you are a backer, you should be getting your weekly updates, and if you miss those emails for whatever reason, or you just curious of what's going on, you can go to Kickstarter, and every Friday, Encoded, that is Phil, the project manager, master thereof, post an update. So where we're at, what's going, and so forth. And he's always on the little updates there. We try to grab some extra art images and stuff. So we got a nice Bargeman image that Matt did. Matt Morrow put one together. It's a really cool looking piece. So that's out there. Stretch goals are getting cranked out. I just don't mean to brag, but I just wrapped up the first cut at the Firearms of Avalon official rule set. So that's going over to Chris to take a look at today. So nothing too heavy. Pretty simple to do, but we just got to make sure it's done and done right. So anyway, going really well. All signs point to making deadlines, making things happen. So I am very pleased, and I think we're heading in the right direction. It's good. It's a good partnership, and we keep kicking ass. So there we be. Let's see. Anything new from you, Sean?
No,
Okay. Did you run it? Did you game it all this last weekend? Did you game?
I did not.
I ran my Ozark game for my 2 little kids. We had a blast yesterday.
Oh.
A lot of fun. They killed they fought a Neo Otiog, fought that. They appeased the spirit of a druid who had inhabited a big stone oak tree, appeased him, and then found a cursed Furbolg tomb that they went through, found out what the problem is, and it seems that the giants are doing something wicked. So they're pretty happy.
Sounds incredible.
I was kind to let them level up a couple times just because there's only 2 of them, and they're kids.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is this one, when they've got more power and you crush them, right? Just you crush them, they feel all the worse. It's a learning experience.
It's growing up.
It's growing up. That's how it is. Oh, you think you got it together? Snowmageddon! House bills! Flat tire! There you go.
Student loan debt.
Oh, yeah!
Remember when I played D&D and killed all your characters?
This is just like that.
It was toughening you up
called-
for real life.
It's called life, kids. Get used to disappointment. All right, let's do random encounter. Let's go.
All right. Random encounter. This is the point where we talk about from emails and voicemails, just like Morris mentioned in the intro. So we have a voicemail from Chris Schorb.
Hey, Brett and Sean, it's Chris Schorb. Listening to episode X. I don't remember which one it is. You guys actually haven't even gotten to the topic yet, so I don't even know what the episode's about yet, but I had to respond to the announcement section and some things in the random encounter. The random encounter stuff, the RPG that is all underwater adventures, science fiction adventures. It's called Blue Planet. It was released by, I think the company was called Archipelago Press back in the 90s or maybe early 2000s. Interesting setting, and I've never gotten a chance to get it to the table, but I do own plenty of the books because I posted on MeWe. Second point, kids on bikes and all that. I have played Tales from the Loop. I had a good time. It was the GM's first time running a game. It's a simple system. I think maybe in the hands of a more experienced GM, it could have been a better overall gaming experience. But the rules were cool, and I did like the players all drove some interaction between the players, kind of that high school drama. Totally agree, though, if it's not something you're even partially interested in, it maybe it's worth a session or two just to try it out. I felt like I had fun with it, but it's not something that I'm going to continue doing for a long time. Last thing on kids on bikes, and I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but I did run a GURPS game 20, 30 years ago where all the players were in a summer camp, and that was fun. Going back to underwater adventures, Brett would love to hear, in reference to underwater adventures, your experiences playing in the Avanti actual play that was on the Mr. S. Goodmart network. I was inspired by Andy's running of that game. It was very cool, and there was a lot of stuff that happened underwater, on top of the water, and it'd be interesting to hear more about kind of your perspective and maybe even have Andy on the show and she could talk about how she developed that world setting. And then, the final thing I wanted to talk about was your rant, both of you kind of ranting on how people who are in the gaming hobby, whether it's a game store or game publisher, are amateurs and not professional, and why don't they figure out all the places that they could send a press release to? Well, just one point is recently N-World had a poll for the best podcast of 2018. Gaming MBS came in 8th, by the way. And there were 99 nominations, of which maybe I knew 10, 12.
Oh, I think he got cut off. He's got that limit.
Damn.
I think it's a 3-minute limit. Sorry, Chris.
Chris, you gotta call us back and finish that bit up for us.
So I'm sure what he was saying was, look at all these podcasts that were nominated and look how many people don't know about them.
No, which is a fair point, and that's kind of where I think we probably tried to leave it with. It's probably a lot harder than we think it is. At least that's my stance today, right? I mean, you look at it and go, man, how come? But there's still something to be said with how certain things certain groups don't seem to take marketing seriously, at least from my perspective. There are firms that do things, there are people that have degrees in this, and so on. And I know it's expensive. So anyway.
I looked back after I said that, I looked back and thought, well, maybe I was a little bit harsh. And even Michael Phillips on Google Plus mentioned it and said, hey, the problem is a lot of people find those emails pretty intrusive.
Yep.
Which I agree, but you got to opt in. And I think you got to provide some value, especially if you're a game store. It can't always be an advertisement every time you send out an email. But I think, I want to try to get on, I think ACD's mail list, and I don't know if I can, but I want to get on theirs because I want to find out what's upcoming. And I think they let game stores know, and they send out a catalog that says, hey, here's the up and coming games. And then there may or may not be dates depending on how firm those are. But they've got kind of the inside track because they're a distributor.
Okay.
And they're here in Madison. But yeah, so I may have been a little strong-armed on that whole thing. But
it's easy when you're on the outside going, damn it, how come, it's easy to rant about it.
It is.
It is.
And I should say, the fact that the official Dungeons & Dragons podcast in that whole spiel of things was ranked number 7. And that's the 300-pound gorilla. That's surprising and not surprising to me. And I think it's surprising because, it's D&D, the podcast. But I think some people may, and this is kind of tangentially kind of talks about what we were complaining about. I was complaining about last episode about marketing and everything. But I think there are some people that see through. They may take it as a strictly just a marketing thing to push D&D.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Where it's right. There's an agenda.
It's a house organ. This is what it's designed to do. It's like
Correct.
It's like Dragon Magazine. At a certain point back in the day, Dragon Magazine covered all sorts of games. Right. I have the CD set that they put out before they got sued for that. But anyway, it has like 250 issues in it, and they talked about games that TSR never made. And then at a certain point, they changed it to be the house organ that it was. And hey, we're going to talk about games we do in nobody else's stuff. So anyway.
But I think that it's almost like nowadays, if you say you were a game store or a game publisher like Brett, and he's got the official Avalon podcast. Well, this probably isn't a good example, but say Brett has RPG line.
You would assume to log into Steve Jackson's podcast to hear about Steve Jackson games. You would not log into Steve Jackson Games to hear him talk about what Atlas Games is producing.
While I agree with that, I also agree that if I'm a GURPS fan, I may listen to GURPS fan podcasts, then maybe that's probably not wholly accurate either. I just think that there is a bit of of course I'm going to get this from this episode or this podcast because it's from the publisher, right? So I think almost like Spellburn podcast probably does more for DCC than if Joseph Goodman got on the mics and talked about DCC every day, all day.
Yeah, there's you want to talk to an industry insider who is not part of the industry. In some cases, it's that feel, right? I want to talk to somebody who knows somebody at WotC who can tell me, hey, guess what I know? Or somebody who has an opinion about a well-educated opinion, which is probably not us, but a well-educated opinion that will say, hey, this is how I do this with this game or whatever it is. I don't necessarily want only the official stance on everything. I want something a little bit different. So
Right.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah. So
shall we next?
Yeah, I have this up. Do you know? Do you have? It
I
up
do
in front
not.
of you?
Why don't you do it?
I have it up in front of me. So Michael Drescher, last episode, if you haven't heard it on 226, go and check it. He talks about his game and Angry GM and talking about D&D 5e being too high powered as far as magic goes, high magic. And so he listened to it, and then he got back to us to clarify some of the things that we brought up when we mentioned this. So yeah, I'll have a link to the Twitter thread, but he goes, so I'll read this off of Twitter. Thanks for taking the time to address the question. I haven't been playing D&D for a while in favor of other systems, and in my random dredging of the RPG posts, I stumbled upon the Angry GM. I'm not saying I agree, it just sparked the thought train, okay? The Angry GM who was quoted verbatim is clearly very bombastic, So for clarification, my definition of low magic isn't by volume of practitioners in the world, as Brett described, rather the practitioner's abilities profoundly limited. So it would be like a candle flame as opposed to a fireball, levitating a feather as opposed to holding person. That is level 1 magic in my world. No one's ever going to be able to cast Power Word Kill, Meteor Swarm, or Resurrection. Casting a Fireball 5e style in my world would be cast by like a level 10 caster, and even then once per day and physically draining. Of course, this is presuming the characters are young adventurers. Never had someone play an aged wizard, although that would alter my stance slightly, in that they could cast bigger spells, but they'd still be taxing. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just tossing the idea around and enjoy your takes on it. Hope this helps to clarify.
It does. That is actually pretty handy. And Michael, I think your clarification there is something that I think a lot of us, myself and Sean included, I'll speak for Sean on this, but it helps to have that thought, that kind of self-awareness to say, what the hell do I really mean by it? Write it down if that helps you. However, you can state what it is and say, this is what I really want. And do I want to tinker with the system, or do I want a system that does this natively? If what Michael says, he looks at D&D 5e, you'd have to do some tinkering to make it do what Michael wants it to do based on what I know. And I would say, yeah, okay, Michael, totally. That game system natively, no tinkering, nah, not going to do what you want. Let's look for something else. And I think that's part of the reason that there are so many different game systems out there, right? Somebody wants a game system that does something natively that I don't have to fuck around with, that takes care of this particular itch. It scratches that itch that I have, and I want it to do this specific thing or whatever the case is. So anyway, I think there's a really good description, Michael, and thank you so much for the clarification, because that helps a lot. I think I could do it with 5e. Take a bit of work, though. I have to do a little tinkering, tweaking, and so forth, but it could be done.
Which, yeah, and I agree. And thanks for clarifying. I would, if you pitch that game to players, are you ruling out magic users and wizards and druids and all casters and clerics, or how are you limiting them? And, maybe, okay, so you haven't played 5e in a while, so that maybe, then it's not a factor. You play something else. But, I think positioning that, if I was a player and I was like, oh, I want to really be a cool wizard, and tying my shoes spell is pretty powerful, you're going to want to let them know that they're going to be pretty nerfed.
Well, that's the whole session 0, session -1. Like, hey, y'all, this is the setting, this is the deal, and this is how magic functions.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I like the clarification, Michael, and I think, as I said in the last episode, I knew if you were here, we had more back and forth. We'd have come to this pretty freaking quick.
Right.
And we said,
pretty
oh,
easy.
yeah, what you want to, yeah, could I make it do that? Yes. Will it natively do that? I would say no. Based on your definition, your requirement for it? Nah. I
the easiest way,
else if you want to do it natively.
The easiest way to do it, I think, in 5e would be just to, cantrips are not automatic and you can't memorize them all the time.
Well, he's talking, the cantrips are even too powerful. What he's talking about is...
But I'm saying, you didn't let me finish, dude.
I'm sorry.
Then you take the damage that the cantrips do and you say it only does quarter damage.
Oh.
Or half, right?
Okay.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
But there, I'm done now.
Oh, fair. Sorry, I jumped on you. No, that makes sense. I was good. Michael, that was really good. Thank you, man. That was very, very succinct and to the point. I like it. Good job. What do we got next? Gabe Dying emails us and says, hey. Gabe says, hey, folks, as we wait for you to figure out what Michael Drescher might have meant by low magic. Ha! Gabe, he did that just above. You didn't know that, but here we go. I submit Cubicle 7's Adventures in Middle-earth as an example how it might be done. I'm not sure about the DM or lore master side of the screen, but the PCs don't appear to have any access to magic outside of heals. I'm sure there must be a few more third-party 5e innovations out there. I'm going to jump in. Gabe, you're right as hell. I have looked through Adventures in Middle-earth by Cubicle 7 for 5e, and that did not come to my head, and it should have. Thank you very much for pointing that out, because yes, my memory of that is the same as yours. He continues, this might be answering a question that nobody has anymore, but I only assume, because of their names and some language use, that the designers of Against the Dark Master are Italian. Recently, I encountered information that 2 of them are European, and a third resides somewhere in the States. Please encourage anyone interested in Against the Dark Master to visit a series of often critical analyses of the game's current quick start rules at rollmasterblog.com. Link in the notes, of course. Gabe continues, I've made this game my home campaign for a year, and I want to spread the word about it and interest in its upcoming Kickstarter. The link here is to the first in the series. Oh, yes, I wrote the series. So we'll have a link there for that. Keep on BSing, BSers. Thanks, Gabe. Good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe.
When one of the things that Gabe did there, one, reminded us of Adventures Miller. Thank you very much. All of you listeners, you men and women that have hit us back with stuff, say, hey, what about? Don't forget. Thank you so much. There's a ton of games out there, Sean. I can't remember them all. And Against the Dark Master, I've not even heard of that before, Gabe. So thank you for bringing that up. I love it when our listeners throw that stuff at us because there's some really, really cool stuff out there that, to our earlier rant, I don't even know about because I just haven't found out. So this is a great way to at least educate Sean and me about it. So thank you so much, man. Over to you, sir.
All right, Matt V leaves a comment on episode 226 on the gaming industry. Totally agree, but it's a problem that's quite often known. Many small guys I talk to about branching out and putting on a marketing hat, and they act like that's evil. I've found it's often a purist type thing, like it would be wrong for me to find better avenues to market. You're right on RPG newsletters, though people who make board games and card games I'm subscribed to always hit me with marketing. This could actually be a solid niche, which could be useful to fill in the gaming industry. So on Low Magic, so he's referencing Michael, I suspect if you asked a handful of people, you'd get a wide range of answers on what Low Magic is. You can't really divorce High Magic from D&D, however. The system is reliant on healing magic, which, in my opinion, already throws out Low Magic. When you can sit around with a wand after every combat and fully heal and doesn't count, and it doesn't feel like Low Magic. It seems like you all didn't even listen to what he wrote there. He specifically said smaller spells, i.e. spell power reduction. I've done so in Pathfinder where spells capped at 4th level and then higher level casters could metamagic those higher level spell slots. Even there, I don't think it really felt like a low magic system. You need a robust system that can handle all those little things for a true low magic system. Generally, most generic systems can do so. You could also use a system like L5R or even Shadowrun where magic comes with a pretty heavy cost, therefore making it burdensome. D&D, while technically possible to pull that feel into, would be a colossal task, and your time would be much better spent on a system that does what you're trying to do. And Dark Sun. Magic is rare, but it's actually a very high-level magic campaign. It was one of the first settings to have 10th level spells. Goes on, I love Obsidian Portal and use it every game. I incentivize my players to keep a journal with small bonuses, which I then post the best as a log so I can review the games years later. It's fun to look at what you did a decade ago and remember how awesome it was. Way better than rehashing that game again.
Matt, I'll tell you, man, that's good. And it is easy to, when you get something back, when you have a listener or anybody writes in or gives you a statement or perspective, to miss a piece. And yeah, it does look like we definitely did miss part of what Michael was trying to get to. And Michael was kind enough to, as we just read earlier, to reiterate and further clarify for Sean and I. And I think you're right. You know, if we talk about, we ask a handful of people, I could get different answers on low magic. Your answer, I think, is actually slightly different than Michael's, and it's different than mine. So yeah, I think what you've written there is solid, and I like the approach. I would also say when you say generic systems, it brings to mind GURPS or basic role playing, or some of those, because of kind of how what do I want to say? It deals with healing and stuff in kind of a quote unquote realistic or quasi realistic way, and it's a little bit easier to pick and choose through some of the magic powers and such. So. Nice, though, man. That was good. And thank you for the update on Dark Sun. I've forgotten about it, but you are correct. That was first setting that did have the 10th level spells, which is pretty freaking powerful. You good, Sean? Any comments on that one?
No, Matt did a pretty good recap, which I appreciate.
No,
That was good stuff.
Very insightful. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next? Stefan Dragonspawn. Hello again, my sexy BSers. Yes, you were right, Brett. I do have discerning and impeccable tastes, so you are indeed both sexy gamers. But to the real meat of this email. When you read Goblin Henchman's letter on episode 226, he commented about the episode on waterborne adventures. He mentioned things happening underwater. I was thinking, have you ever heard of someone running a game, one-shot story or long story arc that happens all below the waves, with perhaps aquatic races? What I know of Blue Planet RPG is that it's a sci-fi setting hundreds of years into the future on another planet where humans are genetically modified and one can play uplifted dolphins and orcas. This piqued my own curiosity, and now thinking I should try a game where the players are various aquatic beings, merfolks, tritons, and or Sawahin, but in a more fantasy setting as opposed to Blue Planet. In such a setting, no need to worry about drowning anymore, but now 3D combat must be considered, and some weapons may not be very useful. How about communication? How do merfolk talk? Telepathy, ultrasonic sounds like dolphins, sign language? If magic is part of the setting, then some effects cannot be invoked. No fireballs for you, for example. But others may work quite differently. Maybe this is another topic. I may not have covered all the aspects of an underwater setting. Stefan, this one and I got a little bit after that one, and then Chris Sharp's piece and yours there. I have I can go back and I can think about the Avanti game that I was a participant in. There was a lot of waterborne. We did go underwater and had to have to deal with some of that stuff. That's a very high magic setting that Andy has created there. Her setting is incredibly high magic. So going underwater and talking to fish and doing this stuff was natural or normal for how the setting was. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't, apart from this podcast and you folks writing and talking about it, I've never had anybody say to me, hey, we should run a game underwater. It's never come up. However, I think even if it's not an entire campaign, Andy's game, the Avanti game she ran for us, was not this on the Wednesday evening podcast actual play. That was not all of the campaign was not all underwater. There was plenty of above water on ships and so forth. There's waterborne or seafaring type stuff. I think having underwater stuff is really cool, and there were chunks of it that had to take place underwater. And because of that, we got the flavor of it. We got to dive in to that piece of it, but it wasn't the only thing to do. Where I think that to me, just a quick perspective, that made that aspect of it all the more cool to participate in, as opposed to something I had to tactically figure out how everything worked. It was interesting. It was evocative of how things would function and so forth, but it wasn't, I didn't feel like oppressively, you're stuck underwater and you can never leave and everything you know or understood about gaming before is wrong. Type of thing. It was a good flavor. It was a good change of pace, I guess is another way to put it. Sean, we talked about this last night. You haven't done any hardcore underwater gaming, have you?
No, and I think I would run it like you mentioned in your live play. I would have it maybe as a segment to offer players, but I don't personally have an interest in running a full world based underwater. I think it would be cool. I mean, you could do, I think, for me, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with, what's his name? Captain Nemo, right?
Yeah.
The how many leagues under the sea?
20,000.
Yeah. That would be kind of cool, but it would be...
It's a component of a larger campaign. It's the phase, the chapter is what you're talking about.
Well, that actual concept, how many thousands of leagues under the sea?
I think it's 20,000.
20,000? I don't even know the name of the book. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea would interest me if it was more almost set in steampunk and you're going underneath into the ocean and that becomes the setting itself. But as you go through the sea, maybe you come across parts that actually are dry, but it's underneath the water somewhere. So you have this still concept of, it's like Journey to the Center of the Earth kind of thing,
yep.
Or Hollow Earth. But instead, you're just surrounded by water. But I would still have it as a component as being a member of a submarine type vehicle. Right?
No,
that's me.
I like it.
But that's me. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's me. Yeah.
Just go full on Jules Verne, and we'll just do a Journey to the Center of the Earth plus 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We'll do it all at once.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll take a submarine to the center of the Earth.
Right.
Hollow Earth underwater.
Yes.
Love it.
There you go. Done. And next Kickstarter.
Next Kickstarter.
Coming to you.
Didn't seem to kick at all. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, Sean, over to you, sir.
Ty Prunty suggests an underwater setting game. You talked about wanting to find a underwater RPG. Here's one from Fate Core called Deep Dark Blue. So we'll have a link in the show notes for Deep Dark Blue if you're interested.
I tell you, man, when I say Golden Age of Gaming, I am not fucking kidding. There is an underwater RPG for Fate Core. Somebody wrote this. It's out there. You can find it. That's awesome. That is really cool. Thank you, Ty. I appreciate you writing that in.
And then, since that was so short, Michael Phillips, I think I hinted to this, commented on Google Plus about, so he mentioned how, and I'll just quote him here. So game companies used to do a lot more of those unsolicited email blasts, and they generate a lot of ill will. There are good reasons that most announcement routes these days are opt-in. Oh, absolutely got to be opt-in. No question about it. So voicemail or email announcements get more ignored than social media ones. And the two Madison game stores I pay attention to because I'm a cyclist and they're on my side of town, both actively engage via social media instead of the 90s tech newsletters. Well, yep, they do, but I wonder why. Is it because they don't get the response?
I don't know.
Or they just don't do it because they don't have time, they don't have the knowledge.
I'll tell you, man.
They don't have the content.
Running a small gaming convention, basically 1,000-person con, it's not huge. But it is weird on how to get the word out to people. Right? GameholeCon in Madison, Wisconsin. There are gamers that are here in Madison, Wisconsin that I bump into every year. And we talk, oh, hey, you game? Yeah, I game too. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Hey, what do you get? What do you play? So on and so forth. Hey, are you coming to GameholeCon this year? What? GameholeCon. It's in Madison. It takes over the Alliant Energy Center. It's the biggest gaming convention in Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, I never heard of it. Yeah. Is it new? This will be its 6th year. Really?
Yeah.
I am positive, unless you heard Gen Con in Indy, and where it goes, hey, there's 60,000 people coming to town. People pay attention to that. But there's events like that people don't know about. And I'm not saying, and I think to kind of backpedal a bit, if you will, neither Sean nor I would say marketing is easy. It's just simply, I don't know what method would work the best to reach gamers. I just don't know. I don't know because I'll hear, social media, all you have to do is do a tweet. All you have to do is this. All you have to is that. And I think by the all you have to, or it's as easy as, cheapens the fact that people spend a lot of time and money in marketing trying to figure out just how the hell to reach people, because it's not easy. It isn't. Word of mouth, unfortunately, or fortunately perhaps, is still one of the better ways for games and things to happen. I know for a fact a lot of our listeners, a friend of mine listened to it and told me about it. That's a lot of how we get spread around.
Right.
You talk to somebody who listened to you and then told somebody they liked it. And it's interesting. But good points, Michael. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Ryan B. Hello, Brett and Sean. First off, Sean, have I ever told you that the audio quality of your podcast is great? No? Well, it's great. So good work. I'm no audio expert, but I do like it when everyone in the podcast sounds like they're in the same room, turns and glares at, oh, no. Oh, he glares at a couple others.
We won't mention
I'm not going to
them,
go off. I'm not going to do it.
They're friends of ours.
Not going to do
it. He's still looking. But, Ryan, thank you. I take great pride in our audio because I've spent a lot of money to do it. And I will refrain from going into more detail. But I do appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Ryan continues. Also, congrats, Brett, on his successful Kickstarter. I have to admit, though, I'm more excited for his next one, Guys in the Woods, the one where grizzled old hunters survive in the forest during the calamity of a robot uprising. Can't wait. That's actually not a bad idea. Anyway.
Yeah, that's totally up Brett's alley.
It is.
That might be too close to home.
It might be. Not only do I hate robots, but I like hanging out in the woods. So this is all good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm mostly writing to toss a discussion piece or future topic idea at you. I've been thinking a lot about character creation in gaming and how it varies from system to system, and also how trendy it seems to have become to write up extensive background stories for your new character while mixing and matching the most unique race and class combo you can think of. Players really get to exercise their creativity these days, and that's pretty cool. My thoughts on this are twofold, though. I've been a big fan of creative character creation over my many years of gaming, 30 plus, in both tabletop RPGs and video games. It's definitely a joy to explore all the possibilities out there. But as I get older, I've been thinking more and more about how beginning a game with a well-fleshed-out character may not be as fun as starting with a nobody and making them into somebody via adventuring. Perhaps. It's been my recent interest in DCC that's really made me question if I always want to invest heavily in a character creation at the beginning, or if I want to find out who the character really is via play. I know there's no right or wrong way to do this, but I still think it's a fun topic for discussion. For example, why would a first-level character start a campaign as somebody with a long history or a dark past? They're only level 1! Also, if a player has an extensive background written up for their new rogue or paladin, and then does that character sheet live up to the background right out of the gate? My paladin's been in service to the patron for 10 years, but she can only hit with a +2? Human nature is a way of tricking our brains into thinking the more options you have, the more creativity you can unleash. I would say in nearly every case, less is always more. That's all I got. Thank you for a great show, Ryan B. Ryan, as I started to read that, I went, oh, he's got to be talking about DCC, kind of that old schooler approach. And there it is. There it is. But yeah, it's another way to go about it. And I know, I think Tim DeShane and I were talking about this one time, and I know Hobbs and I have talked about it, that concept of developing your character in play instead of coming in with a preconceived notion of who that character is. Instead of saying, she grew up this way, so on and so forth, so on. But finding out through play, hey, you know what? She's a fighter, and it turns out what's really cool is to be from this island. Because guess what? It's a waterborne adventure, and you just realized this island happens to be a really cool place to be from, or whatever the case is. So that exploring during play is a style of gaming that I think is really cool, and I think it's something people should try because it's a different way to do it. It's an older way to do it, but it's also got some really strong points, I think. Sean, what are you thinking?
I do see the strengths of doing it while you play. Absolutely. The paladin in service for 10 years, but only hit with a +2. I understand that angle, but at the same time, you could look at the stupid hobbits in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
They're like they start out level 0 farmers. And then at the end, man, they're taking on Shelob, man.
Yeah, stab her in the face.
Right. So I think that one could justify that swing over time while you're adventuring. You're doing stuff that you never did before. You're foraging, and you're probably tracking and going through the woods and becoming better at certain things. Where if you're like a cleric or a paladin that may be in the church every day, all day, and just blessing water all day, maybe you don't level up.
This kind of goes to, I think, what I was ranting at or around Michael's original email to us last week was, if we're talking D&D for a second, if the character classes are only available to player character or NPCs of note, and not everybody can. It's kind of the difference between mooks and what's the other, what's the thing in Savage Worlds? What are they called? Special characters that they're PCs, what are they called? You play Savage Worlds.
Wild
cards. Thank you.
They're named usually, and they get a wild die.
And important.
Right.
Everybody else is effectively a mook around you. If you have a knight, he's not a paladin. He may be a knight of a holy order, but he's not a paladin. Your paladins kick ass because he or she may be the only person in their entire unit who actually has that +2 to hit, and they're blessed by their god, and they can do all these things. Or they're, I guess...
Even if they're level 1.
They're still badass because they have a thing that nobody else around them has. And I guess that's where my differentiator, or way to differentiate low magic, or the importance of some of those things, comes into play, is by eliminating the fact that, oh, this church has 5 priests. Well, they're all obviously first-level clerics at least. No, they're not. They're just priests. They're just NPC priests with no access to spells. They have not been blessed by their god. They just haven't. You, a cleric of, Obad-Hai, you can do this. The other priests and druids, no, they worship and they pray really hard and they do their best to live up to Obad-Hai and everything that Obad-Hai says, but they just haven't received that blessing. And when you do that, you limit the amount of magic that's in the world, the amount of power and so forth, and also, from my perspective, helps to make the character pretty powerful and pretty cool. However, that's a bit of a side piece, but that's something, Ryan, that what your comments made me think of that yet again. So anyway.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the fact that, you could have players say, okay, we're not going to do character backgrounds. They're just, and I understand they may not be relevant to what you're playing. And as you play them, they become relevant. So you could always say, well, why do you know this? Well, because I grew up in this big city. And then you just dynamically bring that up in the adventure versus, well, I wrote it down on my character sheet and, oh, I, as a game master, can recognize that and say, Brett, your guy knows this because you grew up in the big city versus just doing it on the fly. So
I think it's also highly possible, and I'll shut up after this, that you could have a table of 4 or 5 gamers. You could have one of them decide that they want to write the backstory, and everybody else says they'll make it up as they go, like that. Or you could do it the other way, or any number of mix and match. You could have a group of people that says, look, I don't like to have the detailed background for my character. Can I do this, develop it through play? Absolutely, I would say. And someone else says, no, I really want to write the background. You absolutely do whatever helps you make your character cool. I would not see a problem doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. Thanks, Ryan. That was good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Over to you, Sean.
DM Kojo goes back to episode 53.
Good Lord, Kojo.
Holy cow, man. Yeah, so some of our audio has not always been that great.
No.
So I think Kojo may be venturing on some of that audio that's pretty, maybe mediocre.
Well, let's see how angry he is.
I continue to work through the back catalog of episodes and recently finished number 53 about the challenge of killing PCs. This is a subject near and dear to my heart. I don't consider myself a killer DM by any means, but I do believe that PC death needs to be a decent possibility in order to keep the players on their toes. Oh, yeah, man, you got it. Preach it, brother. You can't let these players think they're immortal just because you're not going to pull a punch or something. Right, Brett?
Exactly.
You got to bring the hammer down.
Hit them and hit them hard.
That's why, hey, spoiler alert, the guys in my Edge of the Empire, they just made up characters that are all going to die in the first 5 minutes of the game, and then we're going to have to re-roll new player characters, Brett. They never knew it was coming. Anyways, I'm kidding, guys. Don't throw your stuff away yet. Let's see. However, I don't usually... Oh, here we go. I lost my place. But I do believe blah, blah, blah. Then what's the reward? However, I don't usually subscribe to the old school save or die mentality either. I find that I prefer games with a balance. As you know, my favorite fantasy RPG is DCC RPG. DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics, has a reputation for deadliness, but I wanted to point out that this is somewhat circumstantial. In the character funnel adventures, this is true. So for those that aren't familiar with DCC, we've touched on it way back with Jen Brinkman. You start out as 0-level commoners, like no classes, nothing. That's the funnel. And you have about 4 or 5 of them. And then whoever lives goes on to actually become level 1 characters in a particular race or class. I continue. In the character funnel adventures, this is true, as the goal is to whittle down your group of peasants to one character that will level up and become a hero. I love this part of the game. However, once PCs move to level 1, they become much more difficult to kill. DCC has some mechanics to mitigate the deadly nature of the game. First, players reduced to 0 hit points can be saved if they are healed by at least 1 hit point within a number of rounds equal to their level. I find that it is rare that the cleric can't get to them by then. Second, even upon failing to do this first option, the players could be saved by the player characters, not players. Kojo.
Yeah, you can't save players, man.
You can't save players.
Well, maybe Kojo's got skills we don't know. Anyway, carry on.
That's true. He is a school teacher, and he may have taught himself how to save players. But in this instance, he's referring to the characters could be saved by rolling the body over, which constitutes making a roll equal to or under their luck stat, which brings them back at 1 hit point. So that's an actual mechanic in the game. I felt it is worth mentioning because DCC gets a reputation as a game featuring capricious death of PCs and unfit for campaign play. My experience has shown that not to be the case at all. Thanks, Kojo.
I would agree with you, Kojo, 100%. I ran a campaign of DCC. It was not a overly long-lived campaign, but we went from funnel all the way up to, kind of save the world type of thing. Relative quickness. It was a fun short spurt of a campaign, but yeah, it was fun. It was a hell of a good time.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I love you called out the different pieces and parts that I think are very important there because you get the hell murdered out of you in the funnel, but after that it gets a lot harder. That's when you become that named player character. I know guys that play DCC, I should say men and women who play DCC that have told me that they don't bother naming their funnel characters until they get one of them at the end. Then they call, okay, this one's Billy. This one's, Marjorie the Invincible or whatever they name that character. Like, all right, cool. That's it's old number 1 or old number 2. They don't bother to name them. So
I find it intriguing or interesting about how you look at a particular game and determine whether it is, deadly and lethal versus not. And then there are people out there that 5e will say, oh, you can totally kill player characters. It's totally lethal. And I have to say at the beginning, like in The Lost Mine of Phandelver, man, when you like the first exposure to 5e and I had goblins attack the party, man, I put 3 of them down. Boom, 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 right? They didn't all die, but I mean, in some other games I've run, that would never, no, come on, that doesn't happen. So it's interesting, and then Kojo mentions about DCC and rolling the character, but then you flip it over and somebody else is like, oh man, DCC, it's just a meat grinder. So it's just perspective. Or
I think when you have critical hits and some of those things, you've got crit charts and stuff, there is the possibility for instant death.
Oh,
some
sure.
Of the stuff. But in D&D 5e, I think I can't remember the rule for basically massive damage that can gack you at the right time. I have also had in 5e, my bad guys aren't stupid. So to quote Matt Colville, the earth elemental steps on your head to make sure you're dead.
Yeah, that's an automatic 2 death save fail.
Yeah.
So if you failed 1 and then they just come up and step on your head, you take more damage while you're taking death saves. You automatically take 2 more.
Yeah, so I have had the bad guys curb stomp the unconscious good guys because they're bad guys and they play to win too.
Yeah,
interesting.
Good times.
All right, cool. What do we got here? That was Kojo, and next up, I think, and what do we got here? Ron B. Comments on episode 225, Chases. Great episode. I like when you guys dig down into the very foundation of RPG gaming concept. In this case, you put forth what a chase should be: exciting, fast-paced, and suspenseful. Once you accept that insight, you can work with the mechanics of a game to produce the experience. After listening to your podcast, I checked out some chase scenes on YouTube. As I watched, my mind converting the scene to gaming, i.e. she has initiative, he made that ability roll to overcome that obstacle. Even though he caught up to her, he didn't make the roll with the modifiers in order to grab the halfling. There's some examples that stood out to me. They're fairly simple and straightforward, with Elastigirl's chase being more like a race. He's got some links here. Fellowship of the Rings chase scene, a Bullet chase scene, Born Legacy chase scenes, Incredibles, and Incredibles 2. I'll have links in the show notes there. Keep up the great BS. P.S. Notice how many times they reuse the green VW Beetle tyke in Bullet. I haven't seen that one in a while, but I should see that again. Awesome. Thanks, man. Good stuff, Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Over to you, Sean.
Tony Sugarloaf Baker poses a question on Google+. Perception in OSR. So how do you handle scene description? If the players ask about something, do they know? For example, a group of bandits is over the next rise in a location that looks like it could be a good ambush location. how could you facilitate the player's ability to find out about this ambush or not and blunder into it? So, Brett, how do you handle that?
All right. Hang on, something broke at work. I got to fix it. There we go. Let's see.
He's configuring a router, ladies and gentlemen.
Fuck, no, you do not want me doing that. I'm asking somebody else. Have you configured the router yet? Please get off your ass and configure the router.
He's in an access control list, allowing an IP address.
That's what you need me to. Oh my God, that'd be so terrible. I think my peer in security would walk over and slap me. Anyway, how do I handle a scene description? Abandoned next rise location. So, depending on what the players are doing. Right. So if they say, yeah, we're just traveling through, they're not paying any attention. In OSR style game, what I would be like, Sean and the group you're wandering down. Yeah, we're just trying to haul ass to the next ridge. Okay. You're hauling ass. Roll for surprise. And hey, surprise, they got you. And if you make the surprise roll, then hey, guess what? They didn't surprise you, and you notice or you hear the sound of, the string being pulled back or the steel clinking into the rock, and the bandits somehow make themselves known. In OSR games like that, I use the surprise mechanism to, if there's something like that ambush, that specific thing, because that's what it is. Can you surprise me or not? If you're out in the woods, good luck surprising the ranger. I mean, my daughter's playing a ranger, and holy shit, they're hard to surprise outside. As they should be. So that's how I do that. So the other thing now, if you're talking about other descriptions, like if you're walking down a dungeon corridor and no one's bothering to search, if they don't tell me what they're looking for, they have a harder time. Your thief, of course, has spot traps, looking for this, looking for that. Your dwarf and gnomes have sloping passages and so on. So I have them use those racial or class skills or bonuses or feats, however you want to define them, to help them find stuff perception-wise. If it comes down to, how do they spot the key that's sitting on top of the mantelpiece covered in dust? If they don't search the mantle, they don't find it. I don't say, well, make a wisdom check to see if you spot something. Nope. If you do not bother to tell me that you are searching the mantelpiece and dusting and looking for things, you're not going to find it. But when it comes to an ambush or, bad guys jumping out at you or basically being surprised by something potentially deadly, surprise check. Traps, a little bit different. Sometimes the trap, what I will do is if it's a pit trap, you step on it. I have in the past used the, roll surprise. If you fail, you just fall. If you make it, I might give you a saving throw against paralyzation or something, or dragon's breath or whatever may be appropriate to potentially jump out of the way or take partial damage from the trap, depending on what it is. Or sometimes, not too fucking bad. That's the nature of a trap. Kid, you missed it, you get stabbed. Sean, what do you think of that?
So I think it's key to understand how you as a DM or GM run an OSR style type game. And so I would do what Brett does, right? The perception piece.
Of course you do. It's brilliant. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Now with what I would explain, when you start an OSR game, you have to tell the players, like, okay, here's the deal. In some games it is, and so this could be argued too, because some people are going to go, no, Sean, I'm a ranger. I should know this intuitively as I'm frolicking through the woods. It's always me, and I'm always alert because I'm always...
No one is always alert.
I'm always doing this because that's who I am. That's like the thief saying, I would never fall into a pit trap because I'm always checking for pit traps, okay? Yes, you will get that argument, but anyways, what I would say is, you have to let the players know that it's not going to assume what the result is and what you're doing based on a die roll in like some systems. So you have to tell me what you're doing. So if I say, hey, you're along a path and you're going down this path in the woods, what are you doing? And if the characters say it like Brett, hey, we're just rushing to get to the next location, blah, 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 give maybe the surprise check. Or you just, boom, there's an ambush. Now, if they're good OSR players, they could say, well, I'm a ranger, so I'm going to go up and scout.
Yeah, I mean, so a real life example. I hunt. I have been walking from my truck to my deer stand or in the woods, walking from point A to point B, still hunting, basically stalking, tracking. And I cannot count the number of times I've been surprised by something in the woods. I'm tracking a deer. I'm looking at the blood. I'm watching its footsteps. Here. I hear a noise. I look up, and there it is. Are you kidding me? I was head down for just a little bit too long. It doesn't matter how good I am or how many years I've been doing it. There's always a chance of being surprised, or this concept of, oh, I'm a hunter, so therefore I'm always hunting when I'm in the woods. Bullshit. I'm a thief, so I'm always thieving all the time and permanently, constantly aware. Bullshit. That doesn't work. That's not how any of this works. Sorry.
But at the same time, if that person is, hey, I'm up, 100 yards in front of the group, slinking around the woods, not on the same path, and they're telling you certain things that they're doing in order to spot things ahead, make sure they're not surprised, man, let them come across the ambush.
Absolutely.
Let them see it. Yep, you see X amount of feet ahead of you, off to your left because you're off the path. You see five creatures stirring about in the bushes. Yeah, it's obvious an ambush, and your party is heading right towards it.
Give me something to work with.
Right.
And I will work with you.
Yeah. That's OSR, man. That's, I get into a room. Okay, I search the room. Great. What are you doing? Where are you searching? What are you looking at? Okay, I toss the mattress. I slice it open with a knife or a dagger. Feathers are everywhere. I open the chest. I dump out the drawers. Okay, something, hits you in the foot and rolls across the floor and sounds like metal. Like, there is no roll. But if they just say, well, I don't know, kind of look around. You don't find anything.
Yep.
Nothing really of interest.
Yeah, we've talked about that before when we talk kind of the search and so forth. And you've got to give me something to work with. What are you doing? And sometimes to get people ready is that it's not an ambush by goblins or bandits. It's, a herd of deer bust out, scare the crap out of you. Oh my God. Didn't know that was there. Yep. Well, you really weren't paying attention. You're looking through the dungeon, you miss something, or something stupid happens. It doesn't always have to be fatal. You don't have to teach lessons about how to be descriptive and how to game like that through pain. But basically, short version, give me something to work with, and I will work with you right back. All right. That was good, man. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
All right, what do we got here? Crimfan commented on chases. It's been a bit since I've checked it. It's been a bit since I've been able to check you guys out. Great show topic. Generally what I've done for many years to have skill challenge type mechanic like Brett describes, where the object is to accumulate, say, 5 successes on top of the opponent. The one fleeing gets 5 successes, escape. When chasing gets 5, they catch up. I look at the chase mechanics in 5e, which I didn't know was there, but I suspect there are things in it that might be worth pillaging, though, such as incorporating fatigue as a resource. One problem that can happen is if you have a chase happening with regular combat, such as PCs driving and others shooting, it can end up being really boring for the player who's making a skill check now and again while everyone else is making full-on attacks. The time per turn can feel really disproportionate. This happens in other areas too, which is why I like combat turns to stay fast, but it's crucial in the chase. Also, interaction with maps can be an issue too. I found a tactical showing relative position helps a lot, but that a full-on combat map is trouble. I've not run one online, but it would be even slightly more challenging there without an abstract system of some sort. Sean's idea of Slapjack is a good one, but one glaring problem is the presence of online players. However, I wonder if there's any way to mimic the general feel of Slapjack with dice system. I don't know for sure, but I will try to think of some ways. I bet a game that features a lot of chasing or the like would be fun if there were different kinds of event cards that the players could play, or to simulate the shit happens factor. I'll give it some more thought. Well, Crimfan has produced a lot of really cool stuff when he gives it some thought. He gives us back some pretty neat ideas. So, cool. Thank you, Crim. Good to hear from you again. Hope things are going well.
Yeah.
Back to you, Sean.
Goblin's Henchman. This one is a little older, but I heard that you are probably going to talk about chase mechanics in the next episode, so that tells you how long ago it was. I came up with this idea for a chase and pursuit mechanic based on a 2d6 19 hex flower. See attached image, which obviously you can't see right now. If you want to know more about the 2D6 Hex Power Flowers work in general, please see below link. And so it is to a WordPress, and I think it's public, so we will put that out for everybody to view. And that...
You want to talk somebody who knows OSR, I mean, old school type of mechanics and feel and stuff. Everything the Henchman puts out fits nicely into that space. So, as always, Mr. Henchman, well done, sir. Well done indeed.
And shout out to Jessica. You're welcome. All right. That's it, man. Holy bejeepers.
That was long, dude.
That's a lot of random encounter, man. That's a lot of encounters.
Yeah, it is. Are we at a point, should we not do the topic? Are we too
we could forego it.
I think we might have to. Let's just jump into some of the listener feedback, and we'll have to come back to this topic next week.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, that was a hefty random encounter, and I don't want to short the topic a little bit, so let's push it out.
All right. Should we do die roll?
Yeah, let's do die roll.
All right, do die roll. All right. So Brett and I, neither one of us have really done any die rolls here today.
That's okay, but our listeners came in for us. So Josh Eves pointed out a campaign manager. We were talking about campaign manager. We're talking a little bit about Obsidian Portal and other things. And Same Page Tool, link in the show notes, is one that Josh pointed out to us. I gave it a quick glance. I'm like, damn, that looks pretty freaking cool. I've not dug into it any further, but Josh, thank you so much. Any and all tools like this, I encourage folks to take a look at it. You may try it, play with it, and go, hate it. Hate that one. Keep trying. You never know. You'll find a thing like, hey, this works. The only way to make sure some of these tools, if they're going to work for you or not, is to try them in real life. You got to get out there, say, hey, I'm going to give this Same Page Tool or Obsidian Portal or whatever it is a go, and give it an honest go and see how it goes. So there you be. I use the word go a lot there. So anyway, Shane Freeman pointed us towards an awesome Appendix N link on Project Gutenberg and the Open Library. Shane had called out on me. We said, hey, I was wondering if there was a nice list of Appendix N reading, all the different stuff that is in the old Appendix N from the AD&D DMG, where Gary Gygax listed all these different books and things, Conan and Tolkien and Far from the Grey Mouser stories that he liked or used as inspiration. And by God, Shane's got a list. So link in the show notes, sharing that out to folks who haven't seen it on MeWe. And let's see here. We've got the rest
are from the random encounters.
Yeah, so we got the Rollmaster blog and the YouTube links. So there we be.
Yeah. So now so next week we're going to talk about...
Next week we're going to have to go back to tactical combat movement. We're going to have to hit that one hard. And then after that, we'll go on to things you cannot know, dealing with the unexplained and unexplainable.
With Brett trying to come up with some good topics to talk about.
Well, you've been shaming me with better things, so I've got to up my game.
Brett's been put on the back burner, man, because he's like, okay.
Yeah, I've been on my heels for a bit. Now I got to step it up, get back in the game here.
Well, hey, sorry to call the audible at the last minute, folks, but certainly you've got things to do and people to see, and so we will address the topic next week and probably have very little random encounters to address. But nonetheless, we'll get to it next week in episode 228 about tactical combat, right? Tactical combat or just tactical?
Tactical combat. I want to talk about tactical
Yeah.
combat, tactical encounters. Basically combat stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Brett's in Pathfinder mode.
Yeah, I got to dig up some of the tricks and things I'm doing. So let's we'll hash it back out, man.
I am interested to pick your brain, Brett, because you are not overly tactical guy.
No, I'm not. And that's part of what I want to talk about. Basically,
and your group is picking a game because it's tactical.
They're good at it too. These guys play Warhammer Fantasy. They're tactical good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to us, and everybody that's written in, and thanks for spreading the word, and thanks for voting for us, and gosh darn it, thanks for being you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you. Good to hear from y'all.
Good night and good gaming.
Yeah, good night and good gaming all. You almost did it on me.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Hawk Sparrow, Andy Hall, Corey Wynn, Graham Minor, Larry Hout, Mark Tasaka, Pure Mongrel, CW Mellencamp, Chris Steele, Ron Bishop, Thomas Hook, Wayne Humfleet, Craig, Brandon Barnes, Laramie Wall, Dan LaValle, Jason Hobbs, Sky, Roger Braslett, John Hammersley, Old School DM, Perry Besor, Michael Dinos, Jim Fitzpatrick, Christopher Gray, Bruce Cunnington, John Coward, Corey Gonzalez, Eileen Barnes, Robert Nemeth, Maurice, Niall Diamond, Angus, Howard Bishop, Chad Glayman, Finoff, Merkel Froelich, Lord Tentacle, Joe Swick, Curtis Takahashi, Josh Wallace, Kevin Lovecraft, Andy Olson, and Tony Sugarloaf Baker. For ways to support the show, head over to gamingandbs.com/support-us. Thanks, BSers.
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.